What's up? Welcome in. Hoge Jahns coming to you a day after the Bears won the preseason Super Bowl over the Buffalo Bills. And joining us for this episode, Kevin Fishbain, who was the only one of us who was in Buffalo for this game. Johnsy, how you doing, first of all?
I'm doing great. Adam, how are you?
I'm good. Had a little weekend wedding, family, good times. Was in Green Bay the whole time, so did some advanced scouting.
No, you didn't.
I did some what would you call it? Unintended advanced scouting on some of the random players deep on the roster that happen to be staying at the hotel. There's some questionable tactics going on there. I'll just say that.
Ooh.
Yeah.
No,
because they were in Cleveland. They were in Cleveland, and then I think they flew back last night too. Just like the Bears did. I don't even know if the Packers won that game or not. I saw they scored a touchdown on like the second play to Dontavian Wicks. But this is not a Packers podcast. We don't care about that. I'm back in Chicago. Johnsy's back home too. Kevin is back home as well from Buffalo. Must have been nice to be in Buffalo in August.
Weather was great, very windy. Hogue, I'm sure you, from a special teams perspective, I think actually Torrey Taylor told your guy Nick Moriano is the toughest conditions he's ever punted it.
Wow.
Really?
It's his first time, punting an NFL game. He got right into the teeth of it. By the way, should I open this with a fun fact?
That's why you're here. Yeah.
The 33-6 win.
Oh, God.
The largest Bears preseason win in 24 years.
Wow.
1990. They beat the Bills 35-7.
We need to check some math there because 24 years ago was 2000.
34 years ago. 1990. The Bears beat the Bills 35-7 in the preseason, and those Bears, 1990, they won the division.
Weren't the Bills pretty good back then too?
Yeah, just saying. Keep that in mind.
So when I watched the game, I got the Bills broadcast. So they talked a lot about the wind. Didn't really make sense just in terms of how they're describing the football is kind of floating both ways in the air. So that was a bit confusing. And then they showed all the cranes in the background, and all I could think about was Kevin Warren and all the mentions of cranes that he has.
Yeah, Kevin Warren had to be pretty excited about the cranes. I also got the Bills broadcast because that was the one being shown on NFL Network.
Yes.
And Kevin, you will like this because Steve Tasker was the one calling the game. He was the analyst on the Bills side of things, and of course went to Northwestern and is a special teamer. So, he can't speak on the wind and all that.
Actually, I saw Coach J-Mac on my flight this morning, and he and Steve Tasker were doing a lot of special teams talk, he told me, before the game.
Good.
Talking about the new kickoff rule.
Is my job still safe?
Way to get there.
I mean, if I could hire Steve Tasker, I probably would, but I think he's going to be busy doing Bill stuff. All right, well, let's jump into this because it was a pretty exciting game as far as preseason games go. I've caught up on the tape. Caleb Williams, I mean, for what you want a preseason game to look like, that's pretty good. Kevin, before Johns and I jump in with our thoughts on what we saw from Caleb and what it might all mean, just what was it like seeing it unfold in person in the stadium and what you heard from Matt Eberflus and Caleb Williams after the game?
Yeah, well, there was the first drop back of the game when he probably got a little bit of happy feet. Darnell Wright gets the holding penalties, running out of bounds. You're kind of sitting there being like, oh boy, this is what we've been seeing a lot of in training camp. And then that 3rd and 12 to DJ Moore, I don't think, because understandably the highlight that everyone's talking about is the throw on their own to Cole Kmet. But if you guys remember that Bills press box, we're in the end zone. So it was kind of a good view, be right behind Caleb Williams where he's at, the whatever it was, 25-yard line on that 3rd and 12, and watching him stay in the pocket, even as it's collapsing, going through his progressions, throwing to a spot. DJ Moore did a nice job coming back to the ball. They get the first down. And it's kind of like, all right, we're good. You see that movie. So it was interesting to have that vantage point. I was also, I thought it was really interesting, and I asked Caleb about this after the game. His last throw, I'm not sure I haven't rewatched the game yet, so I'm not sure like what the TV angle looked like. But from our perspective, when he let go of that ball, I'm thinking like he's just throwing this ball away. But then you look and you see Rome was open. Rome flashed open in the back of the end zone. And Caleb's response in the field, you could tell he was frustrated, like that he thought there was a chance. And I'm sitting there thinking like, there's no way anybody could have gotten Rome that ball in that situation with that pressure from that part of the field, except for maybe Caleb Williams. And maybe Caleb thought that. So I asked him after the game, like, did you see Rome? What happened there? And he went detailed about like he was frustrated. He said he talked to Rome. That was that type of thing. They got to continue getting the same page about where the defender was, where he thought Rome was going to be, where he was where Rome thought the throw was going to come. Like, you can go check it out in the story of The Athletic. But that was one of those plays. Like, again, I know we're talking about the completions; they were great, but that was one of those where you could kind of see that competitiveness in him. That like, here's a player. It's like it's 3rd and long. You've got a guy. He got hit on the play. You're not going to make that throw. But he expected it. He thought he should have made that throw. He thought that they should have connected on that. And that was kind of one of my takeaways, just, getting his insight about it after the game and then seeing kind of his mannerisms on the field from after that miss.
So he wasn't throwing it away. Steve Tasker thought he was throwing it away out of the back of the end zone.
Yeah, I think he was. I mean, I think in his head that he was taking a shot. Obviously, it was too far. But
yeah, so
he was throwing there.
I watched the all 22 on this and putting it together with what Caleb said. I'm pretty sure I know exactly what happened there, because on like Rome's route was to come over like this, and then on the scramble drill he stopped and went back towards the sideline. Simba Webster was the outside receiver there, and he kept going towards the end zone. So where Rome went to the front pylon, they were basically on a collision course. So that's what Caleb, I think, was frustrated with, because if Rome had instead gone to the back pylon,
which is where Caleb threw the ball,
that would have been wide open. But he kind of ran to where Simba was actually bringing the other defender. And that's kind of what Caleb said to you, Kevin, on that question post game as well. When I first watched that, I hadn't heard what Caleb said yet. And I think I even tweeted this, and I should probably clarify it a little bit, because I wasn't even sure Caleb saw Rome.
Because that's what I couldn't believe he did, frankly.
Because it didn't make sense. It looked like maybe he was trying to go to Webster, and Webster wasn't open, so then he just kind of threw it out of bounds. I think what ended up happening was where Rome didn't go where he wanted it to, he kind of was like, I'm just going to throw this to the back pylon where nobody's going to get it except for him, or it's going to go out of bounds. And ultimately, where that ball landed, nobody was going to catch it. But I do think with 100% certainty, had Rome broken to the back to start with instead of the front pylon, that's a touchdown, easy touchdown. Because as it turns out, with what Caleb answered to you, he did see Rome. He did know where Rome was going. And he was just frustrated that Rome kind of went towards where Simba already was instead of going to the back where it was wide open. That's just a chemistry play. That's just chemistry that they got to
play. Yeah, again, I wasn't sitting here asking the question to critique Caleb Williams for like not connecting. Again, I'm not expecting anybody to make that throw. But I just thought it was so notable that he was that frustrated that he was able to say, like, that could have been a touchdown. And it would have been a ridiculous touchdown throw if he made it from the pocket, getting hit to the back corner of the end zone from like I don't remember what the yard line was there. But that, again, I think we're all in this stage where we're trying to learn more about this guy. I'll tell you guys one more play that I kind of was like stuck on my head a little bit. The illegal contact, which, they got bailed out, right? Like that could have been an interception. This is that second series, the 3rd down throw to Rome. This right after Caleb let go of that ball, he was asking for a flag. Like he was on it. And, it got me thinking about this whole idea of, Justin Fields never got flags. And I don't think Caleb necessarily induced that flag. And you could argue maybe that was a throw he shouldn't have made. But I just, again, you're seeing that competitiveness. You're seeing that understanding that he's thinking like, I know what this route is supposed to be. I know who his defender is. There's no way he's there unless something happened.
Real quick, I'm going to jump in on that because I agree with you. I think he knew he was getting the flag the whole time because if you watch that play from both the all 22 and the back end zone angle, his eyes were on Rome. He was going to throw that ball with an anticipatory throw out of basically out of the break. Because you see him pump, and the reason he pumps is because Rome got held up. It was illegal contact, and so if without that illegal contact, I actually think that would have been an easy completion. And instead, he gets held up. You see Caleb pump, and then I think because he's thinking, I'm getting the flag anyway, I'm going to throw it anyway. And he does. Now, you can debate whether that's smart or not, because if you don't get the flag, maybe it's interception. But I think he knew he was getting that flag, and I also think it would have been an easy completion had that contact not occurred, because I think Rome would have won the route. And I'm telling you, if you watch the film, Caleb was ready to rip an anticipatory throw right there.
That's interesting. And that, again, that speaks to this guy's like kind of the cerebralness of what he's able to kind of see in the comfort level. And like, I just, again, it's a very specific, nuanced part of the game that we've seen the Rodgerses and Mahomeses do at a high level. And like, I want to be careful with, like, I'm not comparing Caleb to them, but I think this guy's gonna be able to work the officials in a more positive way, in terms of like making sure that they're looking for things that he's looking for and understanding things. And that was just that kind of looked like an example that he knew right away that should have been a flag.
I liked his explanation of the screenplay to Swift.
Mm-hmm.
How he just saw his gloves,
Mm.
like with the orange coloring on the gloves, and knew he was open if he could just get the pass off. And we saw him make throws like that in college, but we've seen him make plays under duress, especially screens like that, where he's got to change his arm angle, just do different things with the ball to get it out. We've seen him go underhand in training camp to complete screen passes to Swift or Herbert or Johnson. So to see that come to fruition, because guys, how long have we talked about the Bears not having a screen game? Like, they were one of the worst screen running teams in the league and have been for the past ever. When were they last good at running screens?
When Matt Forte was a running back.
Long time ago.
What about that time Jeremy Langford had a screen pass for touchdown against St. Louis?
Forte
and Zach Miller
I'm
in
not
the
giving you
same
Jeremy
game.
Langford. I'm
The
not
same
giving you
game.
Jeremy Langford.
2 80-plus yard touchdowns on screen plays in the same
I know
game.
that game. I know that game well. Zach Miller also broke out that game as well, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
He had the other one.
All right,
They
but the
both
Bears,
had-
can we all agree they're not a good screen game team?
Well, they are now. Because they
of
got
who?
Caleb, who can somehow Houdini a football around a giant human being like this because he saw orange gloves.
Is Caleb Williams saying, I threw it to the orange gloves, his version of Nick Foles telling Anthony Miller, go to the L in ATL and I'll throw it there?
Mm.
Shout out Nick Foles retiring from the NFL.
Nick Foles did retire. The all 22 view of the third down, the 3rd and 12 to DJ Moore, that was a tighter window than I thought. Like, watching on TV again, the NFL broadcast, NFL Network broadcast, the Bills broadcast. Like, I'm like, all right, there's obviously a window there. DJ Moore settled, in the zone, open, between two defenders. But that was a tighter spot. I mean, he had to really fire that ball to complete that first down.
Yeah, I would say so you're talking about 3rd and 12, right?
Yes.
So that was honestly, if you look at it, relatively simple offense, relatively simple defense, but it still required him to read the backer to vacate the space underneath, because they had 3 wide
Who
receivers.
was it? Tyler Scott's in the middle, right? Was it Tyler
Yeah.
Scott? And he goes, you could see him from the end zone view. Go this to that.
Yeah, because they actually ran 20 personnel on the play, so they had no tight ends on the field. They go 2 backs, and they kept extra. So those backs were in there to protect first, and the Bills only brought 4. So both of those backs leak out right after they realize they don't have to protect anyone. The offensive line secures the 4 they have to block, which is great. we can talk about the offensive line a little bit, but all 3 wide receivers just run basically simple curls past the first down marker. However, it takes, I think it was actually Travis Homer on the left side to come out. And when he comes out of the backfield wide open, because everybody ran downfield, that pulls the backer up because somebody's got to come up and cover him. Otherwise, Caleb's just going to dump it off to him. So that's a simple 1-2 read, right? He's either going to dump it off the back, but the backer comes up. That opens up the window to DJ, and he rips it. I mean, he rips it right on time. So it was a good job of, it wasn't the most complicated read of all time, but it was, hey, this is the play. Do your job, read it. He reads it and he rips it. And it was a tight window by the time the ball, the way the whole play developed with that timing. And it was a great job.
And I know what you're saying about like vanilla. And a lot of this is vanilla, but there'll be times when it's 3rd and 12 where teams just rush 4, drop a bunch of guys in the zone coverage to try to beat you that way. I remember a few quarterbacks who struggled specifically against zone coverage and who would only see 4 rushers because of their struggles against zone coverage. So the ability to read it and then rip that ball into that window, like, let's take that as a positive.
And at the risk of making too big of a deal out of that play, how many times have the Bears had 3rd and 12 in the last however many years, and we're like getting ready for the punt team to come out?
You're saying that's why they drafted
Like, I mean,
Taylor for that moment.
Yeah, frankly, like 3rd and 12, they had a good chance the last 3 years because Justin would run for it. He had the ability to run for that like every time. But it's been, it's not like the Bears often have a quarterback who you're that confident is going to, Fields did it here and there, and Mitch did it here and there, and it was just one play. But yeah, and you know what? Credit to Shade Waldron and Matty Rufus for like calling a pass play there and not just handing off. On the flip side, 3rd down and 3rd and 1 at the 9? Would have liked to have seen the ball stay in the quarterback's hands, selfishly.
Yeah, I mean, they after the screen to Swift, they went run.
Yeah.
Field goal. And I felt the same way watching live. Now you got to remind yourself that this is a very basic game plan. They had 15. Yes. Basically what I hypothesized on the pod going into the game ended up being true. They're basically running their first 15, right? So it was a very limited sample size, and I'm sure as much as everybody loves Caleb and wants this to be about Caleb, coaches included, we understand they're all in on Caleb and making sure he develops. There's still things from an offensive coordinator standpoint you want to see in the run game and you want to put on tape with these first 15. So it wasn't all about Caleb. And so I'm guessing when they got down there, some of those plays that they wanted to at least see run so they can analyze the offensive line, analyze the running backs, have teach tape for everybody, not just Caleb. That's probably why they called those runs there in that point. Now, 4th down, I was certainly screaming, what do you have to lose? Go for it. Run a 4th down play here, see what happens. But obviously, the most important thing that everybody forgot about is that they had a backup long snapper, and you had to get Cameron Lyons a snap there.
And it was windy.
No.
Gotta get Cairo some practice kicking in the wind.
Kevin is someone who
wasn't being serious about that.
With the cranes in the back, the cranes in the background. By the way, if the Bears wanted to, they could have multiple cranes out at Arlington Heights tomorrow. Throw that out there.
Wow. So we should we should tell everybody that those cranes outside the Bill Stadium is because they're building a new stadium.
Correct. Right next to the current one.
For the record, since we're counting cranes at stadiums, there was one crane at Lambeau Field, and they were still doing. They're constantly upgrading, making nice changes to that stadium that they are able to pack with people on tours in a nice restaurant called 1919 inside with an awesome title town thing with residential and all these restaurants and a sled running hill. All these cool things packed Friday, Saturday, Sunday with the Packers in Cleveland.
We won't lie. It's nice there. It's nice. It's nice. Title town. It's nice.
In our time on the Bears beat, how many upgrades have happened at Soldier Field? The Jumbotron upgrade?
The turf, which was all Flus.
The turf, that's a big one. Certainly nothing that required a crane.
In all seriousness, we don't have to talk about this, but you go in Lambeau, you take a tour, and then one of the first things they're talking about is how in the late 1990s, Bob Harlan understood that the Packers were falling behind from a revenue standpoint because of stadiums, and how they had to catch up and get ahead of the game. And to think about it like that, the Bears are now a quarter century behind the Packers in that area.
In most areas.
Well, yeah.
But yes,
coincidentally,
yeah.
couldn't beat the team that entire time either. I'm just saying, like, it's. I understand this whole lakefront thing. It's great, but I might want to revisit the Arlington Heights deal.
Johns, you had a question.
I did. As someone who has covered the preseason debuts of Mitch Trubisky in 2017 and Justin Fields in 2021, how different was Caleb's debut in Buffalo?
It's a good question. I was talking about this a lot with Mark Potash yesterday. So you guys remember Mitch completed his first 11 passes
against the Broncos, right?
Broncos that day in Soldier Field.
He was 18 for 25 for 166.
Yes, Justin Fields threw 2 touchdown passes against Miami, or at least had 2 total touchdowns. What do you got there?
I got it right here. He was wrong one. Give me a second.
For some reason I don't remember his as well as I remember
Fields. Fields' debut was. I remember it being electric. I remember it being, and you also had the moment where it was the first time fans were back in Soldier Field.
Fields was 14 for 20 for 142 and a touchdown.
Yeah. Did he run for one?
He did run for one.
Yeah, so 2 touchdowns. Yeah. So, like, I think you could say those were both, I assume, against backup defenses in those games. Mitch's might have been against a third string defense.
I think it's very important to point out.
Yeah. And this was on the road against a starting playoff defense. Look, Mitch Trubisky and Justin Fields' preseason debuts were better, more productive, more highlights. I think this one, you just came away like, I don't know. I had a buddy of mine text me, and this was the best. I thought he put it well. Like, he just said, he goes, "I'm watching the game. This guy looks like an NFL quarterback."
Can I give
like a lot of people were like waiting to see this guy? You're like waiting to see what it looks like, and you're like, "All right, there it is."
And you didn't have to wait. You didn't have to wait to the second quarter.
Right.
Can I give you the third play from scrimmage of what was Mr. Trubisky's preseason debut?
Was it better or worse than the wide open guy he missed in the end zone yesterday?
So the third play scrimmage for the Bears, 3rd and 8 from their own 32. Shotgun. Mike Glennon, pass deep left, intended for Zach Miller, intercepted by Chris Harris at 50. Chris Harris returns 50 yards, touchdown. It's just different because there's no Mike Glennon to sit behind for a quarter. There's no Andy Dalton to sit behind for a quarter. He's playing with your best players and against the best players from the opponent.
I think there's a very important benchmark and like our baseline that we're all operating from that is different than the baselines that Justin Fields and Mitch Trubisky. Like, Mitch at a low baseline because I don't know if I want to go low or high with this meter I'm creating. I'll say low baseline because did not have a good college career. A lot of unknowns about him. Justin Fields at a higher baseline because Justin Fields had a really spectacular college career. People knew who he was. We all saw the Clemson game. We all saw we did Ohio State. And so because of that, I always felt Justin Fields got more benefit of the doubt than Mitch Trubisky did. And some of it was deserved, but I did think that some of it was just because people just assumed he was better. And he was probably. Well, Caleb's on another level now because now you're talking about the number 1 pick in the draft, a Heisman winner who everybody consensus said was, for the most part, believed he was the best player to draft. So I think when you start on that baseline, we're obviously going to evaluate him a little differently than maybe the other two, but there's a reason we're doing that. Because he's got all these tools that everybody's seen already from his time at Oklahoma, his time at USC, his time in high school, that, this guy is just you guys understand what I'm saying? It's just like a different evaluation. So you're like out there like, oh, he's 4 for 7. Well, it's kind of 6 for 7 if you think about the drops. And we're just like, yeah, the other two guys had more spectacular plays against backup defenses, but you just have this. You come out of this with like just more of a comfort level about that this thing can mean something more going forward. Does that make any sense?
I mean, yeah, but I also think, and I think you're trying to say this too. It's also because he's just better.
Yes.
Like it's kind of like outside expectations, development expectations. Like I understand what you're saying. Like Trubisky was somewhat of a project, right? Fields had flaws. Now everybody was hopeful, including obviously the Bears who drafted these guys, that those things could be developed. But I mean, I've been saying this all along that I think Caleb's floor was already Justin's ceiling as a passer. I always have to throw that in there. As a passer, obviously, because Justin's spectacular with his legs and all that. Just as a passer. And I think vanilla offense, defense, preseason, whatever. I still think yesterday was evidence of that. When you see the plays that he was able to make. Now, yes, it was relatively vanilla. There were some wrinkles in there, but and as I said on whatever day it was recorded, our last episode, Thursday, Friday, I expected it to look better against the Bills than it has in practice because I honestly think both talent and scheme has been more difficult in practice than what you're going to see from, in my opinion, a less talented defense running simpler stuff. It should look better. And I think we saw that. And that's not a criticism at all. That's just good. Good it was, and they did it. And they had success. Great. Now, do I have to be the only one who points out that they didn't score touchdowns on either of those drives? I don't necessarily think it's Caleb's fault, but before we go running off about how, all the answers are out there, I thought both of those should have been touchdowns. Honestly, I blame the running backs more than anything else. DeAndre Swift's got to keep his feet. It's a great screen. Stay on your feet. Inside, I know people are debating inside or outside. It doesn't matter. He fell. Stay and keep your feet up. And then there was another couple runs, I thought, from Khalil Herbert where he could have kept his feet as well. And then we talked about the play earlier where I think if Rome runs the right spot, that one's a touchdown on the second drive too. So it would have just been nice to see touchdowns, not field goals, because let's not forget, this is the Chicago Bears. They struggle to score touchdowns, and that's how you win football games. But I want to make it very clear, I'm not blaming Caleb for any of that. I still think individually his debut was great.
If Ian Wheeler was in the game, maybe they would have scored touchdowns because he's a touchdown machine.
It's true.
2.
They
Velus Jones Jr. as well.
There you go.
1.
The Booker coming back to practice and Velus Jones moving the running back, Demetric Felton, is no longer on the team. I don't know if you guys saw that. He got waived today.
I did see that.
Yeah.
Kevin, Velus Jones Jr., running back. Does this continue for another, what did Flus call it, block? Is this going to continue for this next block of practices?
I think it should, right? I mean, you guys, do you guys see it? There's more potential for him at that position than there is at wide receiver, right? You guys don't need to see him at wide receiver at all.
It's a loaded room to begin with because you're probably going to keep a running back, and Travis Homer has all that special teams value. I thought he looked good. Forget the touchdown run. The other one where he cut outside after getting bottled up inside. That was impressive.
Velus Jones's ceiling comp is Cordero Patterson, right? And we saw that a little bit with Cordero Patterson. He was pretty good with the Patriots when they started handing the ball off to him, and the Bears tried it, and it wasn't very good. I always felt that was more of a Bears problem than a Cordero problem. But you can see when a guy is that big and he comes at the line with that head of steam, that he's off. And you're kind of like, whoa. You see him move, and he gets outside a tackle so quickly. It's like suddenly like a simple carry, and boom, it's actually a 6-yard gain. And again, I don't know how often they could use him. As you said, they've got a crowded room in there. But I'm way more intrigued about that possibility than him at wide receiver.
Yeah, I just think it's about continuing to build his value on the roster. And my guess is that he lands in that running back room in a similar spot where he is in the wide receiver room, which is limited reps, right? But if you can give him limited reps at two different positions, you've just doubled the reps, right?
Yeah.
And you've created a package where he's a weapon. And if I was just getting to that part of the offensive tape where I was starting to see him on the field at running back, I think the first play he was out there in the backfield, they ran a misdirection with him. So they didn't give him the ball, but they went away from him. And it was like, oh, they're noticing, not that they were scheming too much, but I'm sure they were aware that number 12 moved the running back this week. And when he comes in the game,
Fast.
yeah, he's fast. So keep an eye out on him. And instead they went away from him. And I think it was a successful play. So that's where, if you're going to keep him as a returner, and I think we all think with this new kickoff, he's probably the best returner that they have, best option at kick returner. Well, how do you increase his value on offense? And I think that's just by doubling his position and getting him on the field in both spots. Now this week I would keep him at running back because he's got to learn the position. He's got to learn how to pass protect. And it'll be kind of cool to see him go up against the Bengals in practice and just see what that looks like later on this week.
But I like the way you put it in terms of building value because, Kev, you and I both had him on both of our roster projections as a receiver, as the 5th or 6th receiver. Colin Johnson right now is our number 6. But again, special teams value, building value, 2 positions on offense, and then the special teams. So I don't think he's on the bubble at all. I think him not playing in the Hall of Fame game was very telling. Then you had this position, James, but I think he's almost a lock. Might be too strong of a word
Yeah.
for him, but he's on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, changing the position doesn't change his status. If anything, it makes him more solid on the team if they find another spot for him. I think, you guys see it too. Velus gets a lot of flack from Bears fans. The people hated the draft pick because of his age. And you talk about the muff punts, the drop passes. So there's this kind of idea out there that like they're just forcing this because Ryan Poles doesn't want to give up on a 3rd round pick. Look, 2 things can be true. Ryan Poles probably does not want to give up on a 3rd round pick. Velus Jones has really, really rare traits that we've seen on kickoff returns. I've written this 1,000 times. He is the 2nd best kickoff returner in football. The only guy ahead of him is Keyshawn Nixon over the last 2 years from Green Bay, who is an all-pro. So this guy obviously has got really incredible abilities. So yes, you should try to make it work and not give up on somebody who can do those things. By the way, Hoge, I'm curious your take on this special teams guy. When you look at the makeup of this roster and you think about the new kickoff rule, it feels like they don't have a special teams tight end. I feel like Blasingame kind of is that guy in a sense. And then Roshan and Travis Homer are such core special teamers. You look at linebacker right now, you don't know what the situation is going to be with Noah Sewell. Sanborn's a core guy. I just feel like with the new kickoff and the way that their roster makeup is, like, it's okay to keep all these running backs because they all have like really integral roles on teams.
Yeah, I think, yeah. And again, I think when we look at Velus, I don't think we can really pigeonhole him in as a running back or a wide receiver.
Right.
He's just sort of like a specialist overall. Like it's not like he's taking up a spot in the room. Because you got to keep a certain amount of, he really is that hybrid type guy that ends up being the last guy towards the end, last guy on the roster anyway, because, you need to use him on special teams. I would keep, in terms of a tight end though, just keep an eye on Brendan Bates a little bit, the rookie out of Kentucky, because he's done some things on teams and
he made a nice play yesterday. He had 2 nice plays yesterday, I think, that I wrote down.
Well, he did. Well, at that point, I was listening to Joniak in the car, and I think he caught a pass. It sounded like a nice catch play from Austin Reed.
He got a little banged up, I think, on the play, but seemed fine.
Okay.
And I want to say he made a play on teams.
Yeah, I think he
But
did
that
too.
he's got really good size.
Well, yeah, he's 6'5", 255. So that's a name to keep an eye on. Tommy Sweeney's been in the league for a long time. At this point, he's on the roster. I think he used to be with the Bills, actually. So, yeah, I don't know. That it's gonna be interesting how that shakes up, but I really don't. Here's the one thing I will say: when the bigger question for me, and this was confirmed in that game too. Everyone wants to have this huge discussion about whether Velus makes the team or not. Do the Bears still have a punt returner problem? Because I'm still waiting for one of these guys to
do something.
And DeAndre Carter needed to catch that.
Yeah,
punt.
what happened there?
I mean, I'm assuming it was the wind. You were there, and sounds like
Yeah,
the wind
sure. It was very
crazy.
windy. Yeah,
but that backed Caleb Williams up to start that second drive, which wasn't ideal conditions. Now that was where he gets the flag, and they end up putting something together. But I didn't like seeing that.
Josh Blackwell have an okay return.
I haven't gotten that far yet.
I think he got the second or third crack at it. Yeah, because I mean, we all agree that you don't want to see Rome back there, unless it's like a.
I don't mind it actually, especially. I know what you're saying because he's a top 10 pick, but in terms of where he is, number 3 receiver, he did it in college. Was good at it in college. I'm open to it.
I don't mind it if it's truly necessary. And right now, it's starting to look like it might be necessary. If you can avoid doing it, I would avoid doing it. But as a rookie, with the other receivers they have, I think it's okay. I wouldn't, I don't feel great about it. I wonder how they feel about his experience because he doesn't have a ton of a game experience doing it. When he's done it, it's been good, but he doesn't really have a ton of game experience doing it. So I'm a little
2 punt returns for 87 yards and a touchdown in 2023.
Yeah.
So good at it when he does it.
Small sample size.
Austin Booker. Big game. Ooh. Filled up the stat sheet. What do you think? Does he solve? Are we starting to see him become that answer just in terms of the extra pass rush help?
I just want to say this real quick though, because I think it's important. He got some reps early when I think Dom Rob tapped out. They played like a lot of snaps on that one long drive that I think was maybe the drive Trubisky finished. I'd have to go back. When they went to that timeout at the end of the first quarter, did the Bills change their offensive line too, or did they just take Josh Allen out?
I don't know if they changed their line, but they did. That was weird that they took Allen out just because.
Yeah, just because the quarter was over in the middle of a drive. It's like taking a pitcher out in the middle of like a 2-1 count. I'm assuming they didn't change their line. I have to go back and watch a little bit closer on that one, so I apologize. But anyway, Booker got some reps on that drive, and I'm assuming that was more of a starter that he was facing, higher talent, and he really wasn't going anywhere. Now, I know later in the game, he started looking really good, and that's great. Like, I'm not trying to knock him down or anything, but you did hear Flus say after the game, like, I don't know if it was really in regards specifically to Booker or just sort of in general with all those younger guys getting reps. It's like, well, now we got to see him do it against the big boys, I think is how he referred to it. So I think it's a great sign. I think it's good. I'm still just a little bit worried about his overall strength and how that's going to hold up in the long term against some of these bigger, left tackles that you're going to face, starters across the league.
Yeah, I mean, I think if he turns out to be a pass rush specialist this season, as somebody who, like, the way they talked about him, you thought he was just essentially going to get a red shirt, I think that'd be promising. We are still talking about a 5th-round pick. So, I mean, I saw some good things. I think, what have you guys thought of Dom?
I think he's gotten better as camp has gone on.
And he had a nice play yesterday. Johns, you had him down. You had him down for having a pretty good practice last week. And
the Wednesday,
again,
only padded the day before the Buffalo game.
I don't know if he's that answer either, but if he could just, because like I've said this a lot, that like I feel like DeMarcus Walker gets a bad rap when we have these conversations about the defensive end position. Like I think DeMarcus Walker's fine. I don't think anybody on like any free agent right now is necessarily better than him. I think the question is there a free agent that's better than Dominique Robinson and Austin Booker right now?
I think a good way to look at them is like I think Dominique Robinson could be a good run stuffer. I'm not sure of his pass rush potential right now in year 3, but against the run, like he's physically different than he was last year, and significantly different than when he arrived in the NFL a couple years ago.
Yeah, he's much bigger.
Wasn't that the first play where he shed that tackle and got right in there? And now the running back sort of ran right into him, but it was still a nice play. He got penetration quickly.
And we saw some of that at camp too.
Yeah.
He's got a few good days at camp. So maybe like it's like a blend of a player there. One's a run stuffer, one's the pass rusher.
If nothing else, I think Dominique Robinson and Austin Booker right now are buying Ryan Poles some time. In that, I think that they can go into the season understanding that DeMarcus Walker is a starter, and they have a couple young options to put in there when he kicks inside, where Walker's been proven to be effective. So you can kind of use those guys and use Booker as a pass rush specialist right now. You sort of have that luxury, and you can evaluate the first 5-6 games of the season that way and see if it's working or not. And if it's not, then maybe hit the trade market again before the trade deadline, like Ryan Poles has shown he's willing to do. That's my takeaway right now is just I didn't think that they needed to sign anybody at the beginning of camp because I wanted to see this play out. I think Ryan Poles wanted to see it play out. And I think the results so far have been good enough that you can continue to let it play out. And let's not forget, we still have 4 weeks. We're recording this on Sunday night. The first game is 4 weeks from tonight, which seems like an eternity right now, considering how long we've been at camp.
So far from now.
So they have time, and they still have final cuts, and you have guys who are going to get released. There's no need to rush this right now.
There's no need to pass rush this right now.
Wow. There might be a need for us to go to bed, though.
Yeah, after that joke.
I had some wings last night in Buffalo.
Where'd you
So
go?
I went to
Buffalo wings?
I went to Duff's.
Mm.
So there's like Bar Bill and then Duff's. And
What
there's
was
another
the place that Khalil Mack recommended for us? And then we saw Khalil Mack actually in there.
Was he a Bar Bill guy?
I think it was Bar Bill. That's the one by Buffalo, the college.
Right. We did not. Yeah, we went to Duff's.
Buffalo, the college.
Yeah. So I
believe it's called the University of Buffalo.
Yeah, I think that's what they call it. But yeah.
Still works.
He didn't even go like Boston College. He went Buffalo, the college.
Like you said, it's bedtime.
It's good. All right. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
The wings were good.
Wings were great. Good.
Wings were good. Yep.
John, did you eat anything good over the weekend?
Actually, I had some wings last night. They were good as well.
Good. I was on brand in Wisconsin. I had cheese curds. Always good.
Yeah, were they good?
Oh, of course they were.
So I had cheese curds. I was in Wisconsin as well. Cheese curds wrapped in bacon.
Ooh.
Fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
A bit decadent, but fantastic.
I'll say this. I don't know. Buffalo had a pretty decent spread in the press box. I was impressed because 6 years ago I remember being underwhelmed by it when we were there for a regular season game. But I thought that was solid.
All right. Well, we'll see.
These are the things that people listen for.
I think they do.
Yeah.
I actually think they do. By the way, on the tour I took of Lambeau Field on Friday, there was somebody in a Walter Payton jersey, and there were 2 undercover Bears fans, one of whom recognized me on the tour. So I think they were infiltrating Lambeau Field.
Good for them.
Yeah, it's nice. So shout out to those guys. Thank you for listening to the show. Really appreciate it. And they were at the wedding too. It was part of the wedding group. It's a good weekend. And sounds like you had a good time at Buffalo too, especially with the wings. So thanks for jumping on, Kevin. Greatly appreciate the insight on this Sunday night as the Bears get this huge win, the biggest win in 24 or 34 years.
I should also note the last time the Bears won a preseason game, even by 20 points, 2006. That was a pretty big year in Chicago Bears history. Just again, these are just facts. Just put them out there. You can take them wherever you want.
So you're saying Velus Jones is going to return the opening kickoff of the Super Bowl for a touchdown?
Yeah, the way of what if I see from the new kickoff rule, he might return at 5 yards.
It's just, yes, thing's been. Try watching the kickoff with a bunch of random people in a bar too, as I experienced yesterday. No one has any idea what's going on. They're like, "Where does that ball come out to? The 20, the 30? I don't know. Just spot it somewhere." Referees kind of seem like that too. All right, we're out of here. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at Adam Hoge, at Adam Jahns, at K Fishbain, and read these guys in The Athletic. Theathletic.com/Hoge Jahns is where you go to subscribe. You can always get a great deal and your intro subscription. If you're not already subscribed there, go to theathletic.com/Hoge Jahns and HoganJahns.com for all the merch. It's up. Johns has got the quarter zip on today. Looking good. And you can also follow our show account at Hoge and Jahns. Bears have an off day tomorrow. Back at it Tuesday at House Hall. It's a busy week. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, with Thursday being that joint practice. It's an afternoon practice against the Cincinnati Bengals. And then they have their one and only home preseason game. Caleb Williams, assuming he'll go out there and thrill the fans a little bit. I think is probably what we'll see this week. So stay tuned. We'll have another episode later on in the week, previewing all that. And yeah, we'll talk to you then.
See ya.